Okay, in today's interview, we have actually one of my favorite Twitter follows that I've been really keeping a close eye on all year long, and his name's Zuby. So this is an interesting person because he's a rapper, a musician. He is also kind of a bit of a fitness guru too. He's got a fitness book coming out, and in incredible shape, taking control of his mind, taking control of his body. Also someone that talks a lot about social and political issues. I think maybe I originally found you through a tweet you made about identity politics. And I was like, this guy's really interesting. And so all around, very interesting person. I'm going to put his Twitter account right there down below. So everyone go over there and give him a follow and say you came from the video. Make sure you hit the like button on the left side, the right side right over there so we can send this out to more people right there down below. And he's also got a new album or coming out soon. So we'll put the links to all that. And then just want to give a shout out to our channel sponsor, which is Vizsla Resources, changing their name to Vizsla Silver, one of my favorite silver and gold stocks. So thanks, Vizsla. And it's nice to talk to you, Zuby.
Happy to be here, Jake. How you doing?
I'm doing good, man. I'm doing good. It's nice to talk to you. So let me ask you, right? Like you and I think a lot alike, and this has been a pretty interesting year in the erosion of freedoms of individuals. And it's been also interesting because people's health in the name of health, people's health has drastically deteriorated.
Yes.
And so all around people's, obviously have been screwed financially as well. So many people, the numbers are off the charts on unemployment and people behind on rent and mortgage all over the world. What do you think are the important core tenets? Like my philosophy is a bit of self-reliance. I can't control what 8 billion idiots do, and I can't control that, but I can control my health, my mind, my finances. What do you think are some of the most important tenets that you live by and that you think are important for others to live by for us to start to take control of our lives and our freedom?
Wow. Okay, jumping right in there, man. I think you just touched on it right there. And I think it is as simple as number one, recognizing how much control and power and how the outcome of your life is not just your responsibility, but you're also accountable for it and you're also in the driver's seat, right? I feel like there are people in the world who sort of let life happen to them and let the world happen to them 100%. And then there are people who take control of the wheel and who recognize their own potential and realize that the power is actually in their hands rather than just being a leaf that's kind of blowing around with the climate of whatever else is going on and someone who has no power over their own life. So I think it's important to recognize firstly that potential and then to take steps to act on it. So with everything that you can control, as you've already said, look, the majority of things in the world, we are not in control of. We can't control nature. We certainly cannot control other human beings. There are even some aspects of our own minds and bodies that we do not have full control over. So the things that you do have control over include your mindset, right? Everything starts with your mindset. So changing your mindset, right? And then acting, if you want to improve your physical health, you want to improve your mental health, your relationships, your spiritual health, your happiness, all those things, they're mostly in your own hands. External factors are always going to influence it, right? You were talking about this situation that we've all been plunged into over the past year, from the pandemic itself to the response to the pandemic, which has arguably been worse. And so, we can't control that, but we can control how we react to it. We can control what we do in the meantime. You decided to, some people will use that time to sit around and, get fat and get unhealthy and be lazy and do nothing and maybe rack up some Netflix hours. Other people will use it to start businesses, to train and to get in better shape, to start a new YouTube channel, to start a podcast, to write that book that they've been saying that they wanted to write. So I think the past year has really showed who the talkers are and who the doers are. But I think everything always starts with mindset, whether it's positive or negative. If you show me somebody's mindset or you tell me what their mindset is like, then I can very accurately predict what that person's life is going to look like long term. Maybe not short term. We can't control everything in the short term, but if given enough time, the people with the positive and the powerful mindsets are always going to end up winning. And the people with the weak, self-defeating victim mentalities are always going to end up losing. That's how it goes.
Yeah, that's what I believe. So let me ask you how that has manifested in your life. So you're kind of interesting guy because you kind of like a jack of a lot of trades. You're a rapper, you have albums, you just released a fitness book. So give us a little idea for maybe some of the folks that may not know much about you or your story. Give us a little idea of what all it is that you do and your mission and what you're accomplishing out there.
Yeah, sure thing. So to give a little background for people who don't know me. So of course I'm Zuby, independent rapper, author, podcaster, coach, and commentator as well. I do a whole bunch of things. I was born in the UK. I grew up in the Middle East in Saudi Arabia. I lived there for 19 years. I studied computer science at Oxford University. I graduated from there over 10 years ago now. I've been self-employed for the past 9 years now. Started out just being a full-time independent musician in terms of self-employment. And then I've added extra strings to the bow a long time. But with me, my mission is to have a positive impact on over 10 million people through in my lifetime. So through my words, through my actions, through everything I create, whether it's music related, fitness related, whatever I do, the sort of common thread of everything is the desire to be a positive inspiration to people, right? To help people get their minds in better shapes, help them get their bodies in better shapes, help to create music that uplifts them and gives them positive vibes, give people content to think about, whether that's in a tweet or in a podcast or in an interview, whatever it is. By the time I die, I want there to be millions of people out there who are like, that guy had a positive impact on my life. So that's my North Star. So that's the thing that everything else is based around. So if someone wants to know what it is that motivates me, that's what it is. Every single day I'm like, okay, like I've got another couple hundred, another couple thousand people to inspire and motivate. So that's what just drives me.
That's what's up. So you said a specific number. You said 10 million people, and yeah, I'm really into. It sounds like we have a lot in common on our on metaphysics, the power of our mind, personal development, and so I always talk about that. I mean, I have all my clearly defined goals that I've always had. Is 10 million enough? Is that a number you just pulled out right now, or have you sat back and kind of crafted your overall vision for your life?
I think 10 million is a good minimum. I used to say 1 million, but number one, I think I've probably achieved that to some degree already. And then secondly, I read a book called The 10X Rule by Grant Cardone. Yeah. And it told me that I need to 10X my goals. So I took that 1 million. I was like, all right, you know what? Let's make it 10. And 10 million is the number 10 million drives me a lot harder than the number 1 million, because even if I look at my social media following now, it's over 500,000 people. So, I don't know how many of those people I've directly positively impacted, but it's probably a couple 100,000 of them. So I need a number that sort of scares and lights more of a fire up under me.
That's what's up. Grant's been on our show, actually. Nice. So I love Grant. So let me ask you, one of the things we talk a lot about, sometimes we talk about Bitcoin, talk a lot about gold, silver, the economic system. And, I think there's a lot of people, and you talk about Bitcoin, I think, on occasion. And so one of the things that I think happens a lot, and this is just my own philosophy, is I think people get attached to the idea that Bitcoin will make them rich, or gold will make them rich, or silver will make them rich, or Tesla will make them rich. In a lot of instances, it's a very small amount of capital that people even have to put into these things. And I believe that the most important thing is a business, becoming an entrepreneur, and having additional sources of income. And you talked about that. You started with one source, and then you said you started adding more bows to your situation, more arrows to your situation. And so could you share a little bit about what you've learned building a large online audience and online pretty diversified business? What are some of the most important tenets that you learned? Or for someone listening that's heard me talk about this for a while, that's saying, yeah, I really probably should build an additional source of income, or I really probably should become an entrepreneur, and this is the time to do it. What's either advice or mentorship or trials and tribulations? What's been the most important things for you?
Yeah, sure. I mean, one of the first things I'd say is that you have to do it yourself to, you know, anecdotes and advice are good, but there's no real substitute for experience. So with that said, I think some of the best advice I can give is to be very wary of what advice that you take and who you take it from, right? Like most advice is garbage, like just in everything. Like most advice is bad. So take advice from people who have done or accomplished what you are trying to do, right? So everyone's entitled to an opinion, and everyone's entitled to give advice or whatever, but not all opinions are valid or created equal, right? So if you're trying to become a multimillionaire, take advice from the person who's become a multi-millionaire, right? Or the person who's become a billionaire. Don't take advice from the random troll on Twitter who has $100 in their bank account and is telling you what to do to get rich, right? If you're trying to get in good shape, take advice from someone who's gotten themselves in good shape. That in itself doesn't necessarily even mean they know what they're talking about. but right, you want to filter who you take advice from, right? If I'm looking for advice, why would I take advice from someone who doesn't even lift and doesn't go to the gym and is in terrible shape, right? Like they're in no position to be advising me. So on each individual level, take advice from people who have done it and people who have proven themselves to be knowledgeable and proven themselves to be honest. So I think some of the best advice I can give is to be very cautious and careful with the advice that you take and to listen to everything. But, number one, also recognize that people are also going to project things onto you, right? So just because someone else can't do something, they're often going to project that onto other people, right? So if someone started a business and their business failed, or they started a YouTube channel and it didn't get off the ground, they will oftentimes try to dissuade you from doing it because they're like, oh, no, it doesn't work. It's too late to start a YouTube channel. I tried it and it didn't work. And it's like, well, your failure has absolutely nothing to do with me, right? Like if someone got married and their marriage broke down and they got divorced, and then they're going around preaching to everyone that, marriage sucks and, don't get married and women are trash or men are trash. It's like, no, you just messed up, like you didn't do it right. Sometimes someone like that can be honest and give good advice telling you what to avoid, but you just got to be cautious of what people's motives are and what their experience is and what their knowledge is and all that. And then, one big one though is speed. I think, just when I say speed, I mean just starting, right? A lot of times people, this is something I think is a sort of curse of people who tend to be more sort of intellectual and analytical in particular, is they sort of procrastinate in a way that feels like they're being productive. So they'll spend ages, working out what I'm going to call my podcast and designing logos and reading all these books. They'll have all these books on their shelves and they're reading, and it's like, dude, just start. Like, get your camera, get a microphone. It doesn't matter if it's bad. Of course it's going to be bad. Your first podcast is going to be your worst podcast. Your first song is going to be your worst song. Your first music video is going to be like, whatever you're doing, you're going to suck to begin with. So just get started, and then you'll improve over time, right? Because quantity creates quality. People often say, is it quantity or quality? And I'm like, quantity creates quality. If you want to get good at something, you've got to put in the repetitions. It doesn't matter if you're bench pressing or if you're rapping or you're dancing or you're learning a language. You get good at things by doing them over and over again. So the quantity and quality go hand in hand.
I dig that. I still don't even have like a logo or a brand for this new channel. I mean, it's doing that. Yeah, I don't think you need. It's one of those weird things where we get so wrapped up in our mind about. So I like that you said quantity over quality. But let me ask you. I think so. I kind of have this weird blend where we talk a lot and I have a lot of investors and macroeconomic people and that's that channel. But when you Google my name, it's all personal development. So people are like, this doesn't make sense to me. But so what happened to me was as I told you off the air, I woke up to the whole fraud of the political and economic system. And I was super pissed off. And I really became an activist. I mean, I was arrested protesting in Washington, D.C. before. And I was just like this angry kind of guy that thought like you could just, I don't know, use brute force to tear the system down or something. And after I was arrested in Washington, D.C., we were arrested by the Secret Service for peaceful protest. And they held us for 3 days. We weren't allowed to call a lawyer. And then they didn't charge us with anything. And they just let us go. And so I was so depressed about it and really angry. And that was the moment when I woke up to the power of personal development. And I said, what really has to change is our minds and is ourselves. And so it's something that you talk a lot about. And I think that for the world to change, we basically all have to wake up from the brainwashing. And then that, our political system is a reflection of how stupid we are and how unaware we are. And so I think the change has to come from within. And I think one of the ways that prevents that is, for the most part, we have a lack of self-respect and a lack of self-esteem. And a lot of that you could argue, if you go back to Edward Bernays, the nephew of Sigmund Freud that created modern PR to brainwash people, you could argue that it's society's fault that we're that way, but you also give up the power to change it. And so what do you think are the cornerstones of self-image, self-esteem, self-respect? You're clearly somebody that has a lot of that, right? Like, you even speak out against identity politics and things that are, you get a lot of heat for that stuff. So what do you think are the most important cornerstones, at least for yourself? I mean, you rap, you're this guy in great shape that takes pictures with the shirt off to show people that they can do it. So you obviously have a lot of self-respect, self-esteem. Yeah. And do you agree with me that that's one of our core problems? And also, how can one address that, or how have you?
Yeah, man. I mean, I was just thinking about something earlier today, and I talk quite a bit about the importance of family. And I think that family and parenting is actually the cornerstone of everything in our society. I think that majority of the problems that exist in the modern Western world are actually a result of poor parenting. That's what I believe. And I think we sort of implicitly all understand that parents, fathers and mothers and family in general is important, but I think it's impossible to overstate how important it is, because that is, if you think of the majority of problems that exist in our societies, so many of them stem from disrupted, unstable, unavailable, abusive families and parents and families, right? And so many of the good things and the good people stem from and are a product of the opposite, right? From good parenting and good households and all of that. And I think that society is doing itself a massive disservice by not taking that as seriously as we should, right? And I think that with so many issues, whether people are talking about poverty, or they're talking about violence, or they're talking about drug use, or they're talking about alcoholism, or they're talking so many of these things. You can just look at the stats, right? You can just say, okay, what happens if a boy or a young man doesn't have his father in his life? How many times more like he is several hundred, or in some cases 1,000% times more likely to exhibit some of these negative behaviors or to end up in prison, et cetera, right? The majority of people in prison raised without a father, right? People dropping out of school, people, like all of these things. And it's weird. I think partly because of political correctness. Yeah. And because of the fact that this has been going on for so long, that there are so many people, actually, perhaps even half of the UK population or the American population, within our sort of generation, who did grow up from parents, families that were not intact, or maybe had missing fathers, or parents got divorced, all that kind of stuff in different ways. I think that people don't want to talk about it because they don't want people to feel like they're being personally attacked or targeted or whatever, which is not what I'm saying, right? I'm not saying, if someone's, doesn't come from a great family that, but I'm talking about like facts. I'm talking about verifiable, objective facts. And look, anyone who didn't have their father in their life, or had an absent mother even, if you speak to them honestly, in 100% of cases, of course, they would have preferred it if weren't the case, right? Would that have made their life a little bit better? Yeah, of course it would, right? Anyone's being honest. So it's not about the individuals, but on a societal level, that that echoes out. Everything we do echoes out, right? It has ripples. If you put out something positive into the world, if we sit here and we have a conversation that's inspiring and informative and helps people or whatever, this is just us two talking right now, but this can ripple out to thousands of people, right? And then someone else can act on that, right? There are people who influence me, there's people who influence you, and it ripples outwards. And so those are positive ripples, but we also get negative ripples, right? So if you're putting out bad energy out there, or you're putting out malice, or you're putting out aggression and insults and all of that, it also ripples outwards, because what we do and what we say does impact other people. So, you see that. I mean, I'm sure you've had days where you might even you might be in a good, decent mood, and you just read something or you see something that's really sort of negative, or whether it's about you or it's about just something else, or it's something in the world, and suddenly you're now in a bad mood and you're in a bad state, and then you're rippling out negative waves to other people, right? You go out there and you tweet something angry, or you post an angry video, or you say something bad to someone or whatever, and now they're in a bad mood. And I just think we as human beings need to be super cognizant of, like I said, number one, like just the importance of parenthood and family, but just the way, I don't think the average person understands how far. I think we all think like, okay, we're really atomized, and what we do or if it doesn't really affect other people, but it really, really does on like such a deeper level than I think most people care to even think about. I think if you're someone who has a large audience, then you're probably a bit more cognizant of it, because you can kind of see it a bit more in real time, at least on social media, both the positive and the negative ripples. But I just think the average person does not think about it. And I think certainly, so coming back to the parents thing, right? I think parents think about how, what they do. I think any decent parent recognizes, okay, what I do and our role and how I raise my children is going to affect their life, right? It's going to have a big effect on their life. But I don't think they realize, oh, actually, it's also going to affect like the world. It's going to affect the whole society that these individuals grow up in. If you raise a screw up, right? If you raise a son or a daughter who goes on to be a screw up, like say a criminal, someone who violently harms other people, someone who, like, every murderer, every rapist, every person who does really bad stuff in our society, they were raised by someone, right? Or not raised by someone, right? But they were raised by somebody, right? So their parents like failed, right? Like it was like, and then you've got people who are great and they're positive and they're adding to society in all these ways, and it's like great. So I think that every single individual, like whether someone listening to this is a parent or potential future parent or whatever, I just think like, man, that's a big weight. And when you multiply that in my millions, you multiply that by billions, and then you give it time, you give it decades, you give it centuries. It's like, well, that's ultimately what's going to lead to the society that we inhabit. And that's where it all begins. Before, you were talking about self-respect and self-esteem, et cetera. And those are things that should be instilled in people as children. Oftentimes they're not. And we can see what happens when it's not, right? It can happen at a later stage, but then it takes more effort, right? Someone might have to go and watch YouTube videos and listen to podcasts and read certain books or whatever, just to have what should already be instilled within them. So I'm definitely blessed in the sense that, yeah, sure, like, I've done my own work, but a lot of that sort of self-confidence and the way that I am and whatever, like you got to thank my parents, right? Like thank my parents, because they instilled that in me. They instilled that in my siblings. They instilled that in all of us, right? So the fact that I do respect myself and that I am confident and that I, view the world partly in the way that I do, it's like, man, that's not even really me. Like they just did a great job, and I want to do that. I'm not a parent yet, but when I am, I want to do that job, not just for my children, but for society and for the world as well.
Interesting. So I've got she's 6 months today, and it's
Beautiful.
something my wife and I talk a lot about, actually. And it's really interesting to see, my wife doesn't, work and my wife's just like an amazing vibe and understands psychology and personal development really well, and is just so present with our daughter. And yeah, it's something that I think about. I'm like, how does like the other 8 billion people like not have a mom like her? It's crazy. And so I think about that a lot, but there's also a lot of studies. Douglas Kruger wrote a book on poverty, and he cited all types of university studies. And for generational poverty, I'm pretty sure it was the number one component that they found through all these studies was the family dynamic, actually. And what's ironic is if I'm white and I make a video and I make a YouTube video and I say, look, this is why people are poor, I'll get bashed. I mean, I'll get bashed as whether I'm white privileged or I'm a white supremacist or I'm just an ignorant white person. And you've talked a lot about identity politics, and it's one of the things that concerns me that's happening more and more and more. And it's people controlled by emotions rather than logic. And I was wondering your take on where identity politics is going, which I assume I don't know if it's as bad in the UK as it is in America, but it's quite bad here. Yeah. And, the ironic thing is it's usually pushed by old white people. It's not even pushed by minorities. No. And so what's your thoughts on that? You talk a lot about it, and I was wondering if you would address that a little bit.
Yeah, man, I think it's a cancer. I think it's it's worse than a cancer, because cancer is not contagious. It's like, no, I'm dead serious. Like, these ideas they're parasites. These ideas are mental parasites. And I've never been a fan of, I didn't even know the term identity politics until maybe a decade, 10, 15 years ago. But it's something that's very, very insidious, and unfortunately unattractive, and unfortunately it's very attractive to a certain type of person, right? Especially people in power, whether they're, politicians or people in the media, et cetera, right? Divide and conquer. It's the easiest, oldest trick in the book, right? Put men against women, put white against black, put, red against blue, put left against right, put, any way you can divide people. Let's just do it. Let's get people talking along those lines and having stupid conversations. It's one of those ideas that I don't even really like I would very, very happily never in my life ever talk about race again. Like I was over that by the age of 2, right? Like I would happily, like, it disturbs me that people in 2021 now talk more about race than they did in 1991 or in 2001 or in 2011 even, right? I'm like, and I also find it hilarious that it's called, that the people who tend to do this are called progressives, right? Because like they're literally going backwards. Like they're literally reinstituting racial segregation in universities in America and stuff. And I'm just like, what on earth is going on here? And why are people letting it slide? That's the other thing that annoys me is, like, I think that the average person is far too cowardly. Right? People often big me up because they say that I'm brave or they admire my courage or whatever. I'm like, I don't think I'm super brave. I think the average person is a coward. Right. And I think a lot of this stuff would end very quickly if people honestly grew some testicles. Don't just, if you're a man, right? No, but really, like, just people need to stop being cowards with this stuff. All of these stupid ideas, the only reason they're allowed to go so far, and the reason they keep infecting everything, infecting every company, every institution, every university, everything, is because the vast majority of people don't say anything, right? They don't say anything. They don't do anything, right? Majority of people know that some of these ideas are absurd. They know that they're stupid. They know that some of them are actually racist. Some of them are actually sexist. Some of them are actually misogynist, like all these things that they're claiming to be, right? Anti-racism is just the new banner for racism, right? They literally just threw an anti on top, and now people are like running along with it. And I'm just like, guys, either you're stupid and you're not realizing what is coming along here, or you do recognize it and you're just being a coward and you don't want to, you're too worried about I don't know, getting canceled. Like people are, I sorry if I'm coming across like, but it does annoy me. It does annoy me because I get messages every day from people who will be like, people who won't like or retweet my tweets because they're worried about like the backlash they might get. But then they'll DM me and say, yeah, keep it up. And I'm like, dude, stop being, like on one hand, I'm like, yeah, thank you for the support. But I'm also like, dude, like it can't just be me. Right. If you support what I'm saying and you believe the same things I do, I'm getting thousands of messages over the past 2 years. But yeah, man, I agree with everything you say. I love what you're doing. I wish I could do it too. I'm like, shut up with the you wish. You can do it. You can do it. You can do it in whatever sector you're in, whatever industry you're in, whatever school, whatever university. You're just being a coward. You're just being a coward. And that is how bad ideas parasitize societies, because people don't want to stand up to anything until it gets so far that it becomes increasingly difficult too, right? And it becomes, because the thing is, well, you also have to remember with people who propagate a lot of these bad ideas, they themselves are cowards. Why do you think they mob people? Why do you think they attack in packs? Right? It's because they're cowards. Right? None of these people in real life will say a thing to my face. None of them will do anything. But they'll get on Twitter and they'll try to get like 30 of their buddies and try to let's go at Zuby or whatever. I'm like, dude, I will destroy every single one of you. None of you can. Honestly, they're all mental midgets. Like it's amazing that people are like afraid of these people, because I'm just like, dude, these are the least physically intimidating people in the world, and they're also they're not mentally intimidating. You already know what they're going to say before they say it, like every single time, and it doesn't matter. Like. And regardless of, and don't play their games, right? Like, so like there will be things like you already said this, right? That you're like, there's something that you can say. If you say it or I say it, right, the response will be different, because they'll be like, oh, well, you're a white privileged male or whatever. And then with me, they'll be like, oh, well, we can't call him a white privilege. Maybe we can call him a black privileged male with internalized white supremacy. And you're like, dude, shut up. Like, you people are idiots. Like, you need to call these people out. People need to stop letting them run roughshod on them. Right. And until that sort of clicks for people, and I think maybe slowly it's happening, you're just going to have like 10% of the population just bullying the other 90% whilst claiming that they're the ones being bullied. It's actually quite embarrassing to me.
Why do you think, outside of just identity politics, and in some ways, I think that it was maybe entirely, that it was intentionally designed in order to misdirect from the most important thing, which is the slavery of everything happens through the central banking system. And it was probably perpetuated by these individuals. And let's talk a little bit about that and your views. But first, why do you think we're such cowards? Why are people such cowards? And how does one become less cowardly?
Man, I've been trying to work this out. This is hard. And unfortunately, I just think that's what most people are. And I know that sounds so harsh to people. That probably sounds really harsh to say most people are cowards, but it is just what it is. So the truth is most people are like bystanders, right? Most people are just bystanders. So if you look back at look back in the past 100 years, right? People are like, man, how did the Nazis do what they did? How were the communists in China, in Russia, in Cambodia? How did they even do what they did, right? Like, if you've ever been to Germany, if you've ever been to Japan, if you've ever met Chinese people, like, it's not like, okay, German people are just like crazy psychos, and so that's how that happened in Germany. It's like, no, right? If you go back just 80 years ago, it wasn't like, is that 80 years? Yeah. If you go back 80 years ago, it's not like all the German population were like psychos. No, they were the exact same type of people that exist right now in Germany. However, this crazy dude with a mustache and a weird haircut was able to brainwash dozens of millions of the population into going along with his ideology, but then cow the remainder to not do anything, to the point that he could just run roughshod over the population and kill millions of people over the course of 10 or 12 years. And this just plays out so many times. It plays out all the time. I'm in the UK right now, right? I don't know where we are. We've been on full lockdown now for, I don't know, over a month, and there's still no end in sight. Or what? Like, this could end tomorrow. If everybody was like me, this would have ended more than 6 months ago. right? This would have ended more. The UK population collectively could end this tomorrow, but people are too cowardly. People are too cowardly, right? The government is not, the police are not going to come and arrest 50 million. They're not going to come and arrest 50 million people for breaking the lockdown rules, right? I think every single business should just open. Every business that wants to open should open. The gym should open. The restaurant should open. People should go to gyms. People should go to restaurants. The shopping malls they should all just open tomorrow. Everybody should just open. It won't happen, but that's what should happen, and that would just end this. That would end this. But once fear has been put into people, they won't do anything. The average person never wants to go against the herd. The average person never. You can have 90 people running off a cliff, and only 10 people are going to be running back in the opposite direction, going, no, I'm not running off this cliff with you, right? That's the unfortunate reality of it. And the majority of people. I always say human beings are herd animals that pretend to be sort of more solitary or individualistic. That's just the reality of it. And there's always going to be more followers than there are leaders. And when I say that, again, I'm not even trying to say that as like a diss to people, because not everyone needs to be a leader, and we can't have a majority of leaders in any population. But the danger of it is that it means that it's very easy to cow people and to just get them to go along with anything, whether that's like, anything up to the point of turning a blind eye to genocide, which is scary. Right? That's why this stuff scares me. It's not just because of like exactly what's happening in this moment. It's because psychologically it's the same process that has led to a lot of dark times within my own lifetime, but certainly in decades prior to it as well. And it's just the same thing. Like, going against the majority is always going to be difficult, whatever that majority position is, that majority direction. It's only a very small percentage of people who are willing to, even if other people don't like it, maybe 70%, maybe you have like 15% of people pushing things in that way. And then maybe you have like 70% who are like, I don't really like this, but I also don't want to lose my job or lose my popularity or risk getting canceled or risk getting hurt or whatever, right? Whatever it is that they're afraid of something. That's like 70%. And then, you've also got, maybe that's like 75 or 80%. And then you've just got like 5-10% of people who are like, you know what? Like, I'm going to stand up against this thing. I'm going to speak out. I'm not going to just go with this and allow myself to be pushed around and be told exactly what to think and forced to do anything, and so maybe it's up, as someone who I feel is in that 5 to 10%, I certainly do my best to try to instill that courage and lead as an example for other people, and to follow my own principles and to not violate my own principles. But it's hard, man. It's hard. And these things are just wired in us because for a lot of reasons. I mean, human beings are social animals, and we care about social approval, More people are afraid of public speaking than are afraid of death. Why is that, right? It's because people are afraid of public disapproval. People are afraid of, falling out of the tribe. People are afraid of being made fun of, or, any kind of social disapproval. It hurts people, That's why. And yeah, so I don't know what can be done, but that's something I spend quite a bit of time actually thinking about myself.
Wayne Dyer used to always say that the point of the tribe is to leave it. He said, and I always thought that was such an interesting way to put it. The point of it is to learn to leave it. I live in southern Utah, and we're actually southern Utah even more than northern. It's drastically different, but no one's lost their jobs here. No business has ever been closed here.
Wow.
The reason I look a little insane is I literally, right 5 minutes before I just got back from the gym, never's been closed.
Wow.
And so
I'm jealous, man. I'm jealous.
Yeah, I know. You got to move to Central Utah, man.
Dude, I can't even go to the States. This is how crazy it is.
Oh, wow. Yeah, so that's been nice to see. I moved here when I was in Southern California, and when the lockdowns got severe, like I'd walk on the sidewalk without a mask. People would go into the street with moving cars to avoid me. Like, you're going to get hit by a car trying to avoid me right now.
It's so bizarre. And that's outdoors as well, you know?
And it's outdoors. And so,
Yeah.
so then we came to visit out here in Utah, and I walked into the store, and I was like, no mask. Saw the gym was open. I'm like, babe, grab our stuff. We're moving right now.
I love that. I love that, man.
Yeah, so it's been pretty cool. But let me ask you, what's your views on how this all plays out? You know, we've got this, this global monetary system that, we talk a lot about on this channel that I don't know if it crashes or inflates away, but either way, it's not going to be good. You've got, this ridiculous amount of debt that far exceeds GDP. You've got all these, the average American, I read a stat the other day, they're like $5,700 behind on rent right now. It may not seem like a lot, but the average American, makes like, I don't know, 40 grand, 30 grand. That's a lot of money. And so we also have this push towards what I call a quasi technological communism. You see, a lot of the political and technocratic elite actually very friendly with China. And so, you've got this mass censorship. You've got, I don't know, they're probably going to make up a new, pretty soon we're going to have like a variant from Pluto that came on an asteroid. Once they run out of states to say there's variants from, they'll just say they're from asteroids. And so it seems like it might never end. And so I'm concerned about America in the more specifically the Western G20 countries. And I've got a lot of my money outside the banking system. I have 6 months of freeze dried food, I am worried. And I'm wondering what your thoughts are on how you see this all playing out, in 2021, but over the next 2, 3, 4, 5 years. What's your views on this all?
Man, I think it depends on the people. Honestly, I think the power lies with us. The power lies with us. It lies with the American population, the British population, the German population. How much are people going to take? How much are you going to let bend over backwards and let the government just run roughshod over you? Look, we know governments are not great at checking themselves. We know this. If any cursory glance at history will tell you that the governments are generally not, the US has probably done the best job of it, of any country, by actually having, a constitution and a bill of rights saying, oh, you know what, the government can't just encroach on your freedom of speech, right? In the UK, we don't have that. They're constantly expanding the speech laws, what you can and can't say, right? In the UK, I could tweet something and get arrested for it.
My God.
That's a real thing. People don't understand that. People in the US don't get that. I'm like, yo, you guys don't understand. You're the only country that has fully protected speech. In Canada, you can be arrested for tweeting something. In the UK, you could tell the wrong joke at a comedy club and you could actually be investigated by the police. That's a real thing, right? That happens. It's not like a made up thing. It happens. Jeez. So I think it depends on, the people. I don't think the government, I think the government's going to do, the media is going to milk it for all it's worth. We already know that. Politicians are going to milk it for what it's worth, right? They're enjoying that sweet, sweet power, especially given that they themselves don't have to follow the rules, right? And they're just, the governors, the mayor, they're loving this. Anyone who's on a power trip, even people within the, citizens who are on a power trip. There's never been a better time to be a Karen, right? There's never been a better time for people in society who love just get off on telling other people what to do. Wear a mask, stand here, walk in this direction. People are just out there yelling at people, telling them what to do. And so it depends on how people respond. I think people need to get so tired and fed up with this that they're like, yo, we need to end this. We need to put the pressure on the media. We need to put the pressure on the government. We need to demand our leaders, and we need to just civilly disobey. And this will end. It will end. It won't end if just a dozen people do it, because you can easily arrest a dozen people. You can't easily arrest 4 dozen people. So, I don't want to be here advocating for a law breaking, but in this case, it's just yo, this is going to end when we end it. They've been telling us two more weeks for a year now. right? And so they've proven themselves to be liars. They've moved the goalposts a million times. I've been fed up with it for 8 months. Like, and I've had the Rona myself. I had the Rona 2 weeks ago, right? So I'm not even talking from someone who's like I've been impacted by it. Like I've had it. I know a couple of people who've even died, right? And you can, I mean, as you know, like where you are, you said stuff never even shut down, and I assume people aren't dropping dead in the streets or whatever. So we need to recognize, like, okay, like we have some heavy sunk costs in this, and heavy emotional sunk costs, and people have wasted a lot of times and done a lot of unnecessary stuff. But that doesn't mean we should just keep doing it indefinitely to make ourselves feel good. Like, let's just the government, even the people in the government need to put their hands up and say, you know what, like, we overreact. We did some things wrong. We made some mistakes. We went too far. And look, here are some guidelines. Here's what we recommend, depending on your age group and your risk factor and all these things. Get on with your life. Get back to work. Like, open up. That's what I think. But with everything we've been saying about the way people actually are in real life, I'm more pessimistic. Like, I know what could be done, but I don't know if people have the courage and the fortitude to do that. I think if it hit a certain critical mass, then it would happen very, very quickly. But I don't know what that mass is. It might be, I don't know, it might be 40%, it might be 60%. I don't know, but it needs a certain number to just end it, just end the tyranny. And I'm not suggesting any sort of like violent insurrection or revolution or something. I don't think that's necessary. I just think people need to just calmly and civilly just get on with their life. Literally just get on with their life. If you want to go see your parents, go see your parents. If you want to have a dinner and invite some friends around, have a dinner and invite some friends around. If you want to go to the gym, gym owners, open up. Like, restaurants, open up. Like, just open up. That's what I think. Like, I think it's bizarre and insane that we're sitting around waiting for permission for the government to go see our parents. Like, no, God forbid, man. God forbid.
So, all right, tell me, you've written many lyrics, many poems, many songs. Tell me your favorite lyrics you've written on your own songs.
Oh, my favorite lyrics. Wow. Ooh, boy, man, I've got so much music that it's hard to, that's a hard one. That's a hard one. I like a lot of the lyrics on my new album though, man. Like, my
Give
new
me
album
some. Come on, you're taking too long. Give me some.
I'm taking too long. Okay. Man, but I'm now people need to hear it first. How about verse two? Verse two of my song "Ill" is probably one of my favorite verses, actually. Second verse of "Ill."
Tell me the lyrics.
Let me think of them. Because I haven't performed for like over a year, so my songs are not as fresh as they normally would be. No one can try for me. No one can lie for me. And Jesus did already. You ain't got to die for me. Appreciate the sentiment. Believe the flow is heaven sent. If it is, I'll reach him from the palace to the tenement. College to the prison, motivation through the rhythm. Know that every verse is conscious and is treated with precision. So when you see the light, you say I'm ill with no rescission. And I told you that already, but was greeted with derision. Been spending all my time perfecting optimal lines. And I don't work a 9 to 5. It's not an optional grind. With the dopest innovation from my optimist mind, I made a focused transformation to my Optimus Prime. So you might see me zoning out backstage where the stars be. Or wilding out in Europe while I'm chasing the star screams. The industry is Megatron. Zuby is a Megadon. Iller than the HIV. I'm stacking power like it's Energon.
I dig it.
Thank you.
So, what's one of your favorite songs by someone else?
One of my favorite songs by someone else. Oh, man, that's such a big questions like that are hard because it's like, gosh, man, like what? Like, favorite, I don't know, The Crossroads by Bone Thugs and Harmony. That's an old one, but it's a dope song. You Don't Know by Jay-Z. Yeah, there's so many. I like thousands of songs, dude. Like, there's thousands of songs out there. It's hard to narrow it down like that.
All right. So, when's your album coming out?
Spring 2021.
Spring 2021.
Spring 2021. Yeah, man.
You got a date?
No, I don't have a date.
Not yet.
I'm not going to give a date because I won't end up sticking to it.
Oh, really?
No.
Okay.
I mean, there's a whole bunch of stuff I need to get sorted out before I start toying around with release dates.
Okay, cool. And have you finished recording it?
I finished recording. Mixing in progress.
Okay, cool. That's what's up. All right, let's end like this. So you got a fitness book, and you probably had to turn your bedroom into your gym now. But so tell me, I believe outside of the mind, it's the worst aspect, right? I mean, people are overeating all day long.
Oh man.
People are eating chemicals and GMOs all day long. They're not drinking any water. And on top of that, I mean, they haven't sweat in like 7 years, And so what is your thoughts on some quick ways that one can improve their health? And more importantly, why is it such an important part of your life?
Man, it's important because your mind and body are connected and you only get one body, right? It's crazy that people treat their material possessions better than they treat their own bodies, right? People care more about their car. They care more about their house. They care more about their shoes and their handbags than they care about their body. And all of those things are replaceable. I'm not saying you want to trash them, but they're all replaceable. You can't replace your body. If you trash it, you're done. Like you're done. You die. That's it. That's how you die. Everybody dies because their body experiences a catastrophic failure. And we can't control everything, like I said before, but you don't want to put yourself and your body in a position where you're massively at more risk to die from anything, even if it's flipping COVID itself, right? What's the biggest risk factor of COVID besides age? Obesity. Right. So I think it's wild that all these measures and all these things are happening that are probably increasing the obesity rate and, increasing the mental health problems and all that, supposedly for our own protection and safety and public health. It's backwards to me. The whole thing's insane. So in terms of what I should recommend people do, obviously, if you don't drink a lot of water, start by drinking more water, getting more sleep. That's a big one. Eating better foods, and people know what good foods are. People pretend like they don't know what's healthy.
They just don't do it.
People pretend they don't know what it is. People know what's good for them, right? So eat it. If it grows, eat it. If your ancestors would recognize it, eat it. If they wouldn't, maybe stay away from it. And train. Do some physical exercise every day. Go for a walk. Certainly do strength training 3-4 times a week. Go for a walk every day, especially if you're in lockdown, man. Like at least take half an hour, 45 minutes, an hour. Just go for a walk outside, get some fresh air. In terms of supplements, right now, I'd especially recommend people to supplement with vitamin D. That'll also help to push off the Rona, vitamin C, zinc. And look after your mental health as well. Like try not to be more isolated than you need to be. Do keep talking to people, keep interacting with people, keep, doing things that you enjoy. All that stuff is important. It's all important to stay sane. The mind and the body, like I said, they go together. People think they're totally disconnected, but they're inextricably linked.
Amen. And I guess one of the ways that we can start practicing having more courage, especially if we're not regular exercisers, is just start to break that, right? And is like, I can't even do 5 push-ups. Well, let's break that and let's have some courage. Get stronger. Absolutely. So let me ask you last question. And I had a great time talking to you. Really fun, really good vibe. Likewise, probably had the most laughs out of any of my episodes. So that was fun. And I'd love to have you back on when your album's out. I'll buy it. I'll listen to it. I love poetry and writing. Like I told you, I wrote 3 books. My whole first book is all poems, and it's all rhythmic. And I make music in my spare time too, so I'm really into it. So I'll go through your album. What I'll do is I'm gonna write out all my favorite lyrics, and then we'll talk. Okay. And we'll talk about everything. It'll be really fun.
Okay, that would be cool. All
right, cool. So let's do that. So last question though is, what's one thing you're excited about or grateful for right now?
Man, I'm always grateful to God. I'm always grateful to God for my health, my family, my happiness. Everything around me and every opportunity that I've got, man. Always blessed.
Absolutely. All right, everyone. So please be sure to give Zuby a follow. I'll put the link right there down below. He's got his book. If you're on lockdown and you're looking for some ways to get healthier, he's got an awesome book that's right there down below. Please make sure you hit the like button on the right side, the left side. Let's make sure more people hear this message. Leave us a comment down below and let us know what you think of the video so that this sends out to more people. And thanks for watching.